7 disturbing facts about Jeffrey Dahmer. Today we are going to discuss the top 7 most disturbing facts about Jeffrey Dahmer. While always in popularity, he has once again had a spike due to Netflix new series Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. So if you enjoy this content and would like to see more, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like on the video. Fact 1. He showed early signs of unhinged behavior. It was perhaps the inattention of his parents that led Dahmer to develop his earliest and strangest habits. Notable for what would come later, Dahmer as a young child had an obsession with the bones of dead animals, searching the family property for what he dubbed fiddlesticks. Eventually, he would tear the bones from the carcasses of animals he had killed. With the help of his chemist father, who believed he was merely encouraging his son's natural curiosity, Dahmer's life took a turn. He developed a technique of bleaching animal bones and preserving remains in formaldehyde, starting his first grisly collection. In the grimmest indicator of what he would become, Dahmer decapitated a dead dog, nailing the body to a tree and mounting the skull upon a stick. He tricked one of his friends into witnessing his horrid display, feigning that he had stumbled upon it himself. Fact 2. Dahmer was an alcoholic. Behavior that would mark and trouble Dahmer's later life was his early dependency on alcohol. By the time he was 14, people noted Dahmer's frequent drinking, even during school hours, concealing his liquor within an army jacket he wore. Dahmer himself characterized his drinking as his medicine to a classmate, and when confronted by a high school teacher about his drinking, implied it suppressed the tension he felt in his family life. Dahmer's alcoholism characterized much of his later life. Dahmer enrolled in Ohio State University with his father's money but dropped out due to his excessive drinking. Dahmer enlisted in the military before being discharged for, essentially, being an alcoholic. Afterward, it would become difficult for him to keep a steady job or live on his own, and later Lionel Dahmer would force him to live at his grandmother's house. Later, alcohol would enable him to kill, as it suppressed his inhibitions and allowed him to commit his brutal murder spree with ease. Fact 3. He began to view people as objects, likely born out of his depersonalization and his obsession with bones and body parts. Dahmer began to view other people as little more than objects. When Dahmer first realized he was gay and began experimenting sexually with other men, he realized early on he disliked the movements his partners made during sex and sought to suppress it. This interest would have destructive consequences for Dahmer and the people around him. He began sedating men he lured home or met in gay bathhouses, having his way with them sexually, and ultimately, killing some of them and keeping their body parts as trophies, even treating these trophies as sexual objects. He also started killing animals, just like the son of Sam David Berkowitz did to his dog. This is nothing compared to his treatment of the victims he kept alive. Fact 4. He had been a serial rapist for years. Although sex and violence seemed to be intertwined in Dahmer's mind, Dahmer showed clear signs of being a dangerous sexual predator well before his murders came to light. There are some reports he committed sexual assaults as early as his military service, even against fellow service members. By the time he joined the active gay community in Milwaukee, he developed a pattern. Dahmer drugged and raped men he met in gay bathhouses. After 12 such incidents, he was finally banned from such establishments. He was also formally charged with a number of sex crimes over the years. Indecent exposure in 1982. Disorderly conduct for masturbating in front of children in 1986, avoiding a repeat indecent exposure charge and getting a light sentence, and a charge for drugging and molesting a 13-year-old boy in 1988. After that last charge, he would have to register as a sex offender, and even his father forced him into counseling. This is likely the first time he was with borderline personality disorder. Fact 5. He committed his murder spree in a blackout. Jeffrey Dahmer was not in his right mind when he committed his crimes. Needless to say, murder, and perhaps even more so the possession of bodies and body parts, was his obsession and occupied his mind throughout the day. In one of his earliest murders, the killing of Stephen Twomey, Dahmer claimed not to remember the act at all. saying he went to bed next to Twomey and woke up next to his brutalized corpse. In times when was alone with his severed heads, he would talk to them. Dahmer killed only when drunk, the only time he lacked his natural inhibitions. Dahmer's last victim, Tracy Edwards, who was able to escape and gain assistance from police, described how Dahmer absent-mindedly watched TV and chanted to himself while rocking back and forth. The whole time Dahmer threatened him with a knife and forced him into handcuffs, according to Tracy Edwards. Fact 6. Dahmer killed the brother of a previous victim. Connor Xenhassam was a 14-year-old Lao teenager, and the younger brother of the boy Dahmer had been arrested for assaulting back in 1988. Although neither of them knew of this connection when Dahmer offered Xenhassam money in exchange for a nude photo shoot back at Dahmer's apartment, not knowing that Dahmer still had the body of Tony Hughes lying on his bedroom floor, already 3 days dead. Xenhassam would end up seeing Hughes' body, according to Dahmer, but he was already sedated and had had acid injected into his skull. The boy did not react to the lifeless body or the situation he had ended up in. Fact 7. Jeffrey Dahmer was killed in prison. Dahmer was finally arrested in 1991, leaving 17 dead bodies in his wake. After Dahmer's trial, he would end up imprisoned in Wisconsin's Columbia Correctional Institution, where he would spend the brief remainder of his life. Prison offered him a form of stability. Jeffrey Dahmer's parents maintained regular contact with him, and he became a born-again Christian. He no longer cared about life, however, often telling his mother it did not matter what happened to him now. Dahmer's death came in late 1994. Jeffrey Dahmer entered a shared work detail with fellow inmates Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver, only just beginning their work before Scarver pulled out a metal pipe he had concealed. Dahmer was bludgeoned to death by fellow inmate Scarver in late 1994, before Scarver, himself a purported schizophrenic, turned the pipe on Anderson, who was otherwise uninvolved. According to Scarver, Dahmer did not call for help and made no noise as he fell. Dahmer died quietly,